Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UnWrapped podcast. I'm your host, Emily Vogel, and we are here with your other host, Andy Ortiz, who I am just so excited to talk to today. Because if you listen to our UnWrapped podcast on a regular basis, you know that she was just on a European adventure. And I have made sure really not to talk to Andy really since she's been back because I want to save it all for right now and possibly for upcoming episodes because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of it.
Good. I thought you were just ignoring me. I really wasn't sure if you were oh shit, she's back. But this is comforting. Thank you for telling me this.
I of course was keeping up on your travels and loving every post on your Instagram. It was just giving me all the life. But I've been kind of keeping my distance because I'm like, I just need to hear everything for the first time and have my genuine reactions.
That's true.
So Andy, for those of our audience members who haven't been tuning into our recent Unwrapped podcast,
shame on you.
Shame on you, one. If not, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. We're glad you're here, but also shame on you.
We're glad you're here, and we hope you will join us more.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we haven't scared you yet.
Yeah.
And anyway, so Andy, tell us all about your adventure, where you went. Let's just start with that.
Guys, it was well, first of all, I'm happy to be back with you, Emily. I did miss you. I didn't miss a whole lot when I was on vacation, but I did miss you. Just being very honest, I'm struggling being back this week because this was my first trip abroad, right? Like I've never been out of the country. I haven't even been like Canada, Mexico, like even the closest ones to us. I haven't even done that. So this was baby's first trip abroad. I went to London. We did London for a few days and then we went to Scotland and then we came back from Scotland, did London for like one more day and then I came home. But when we were in Scotland, we did Edinburgh for like a day total based on how much time we were there. And then we took a tour of the Highlands. And I'm so sorry for those of you watching, listening. I might like hack up a lung or I might be a little bit sniffly here. I'm on like the tail end of a cold because here's the thing about the Highlands. They're gorgeous. They're stunning. They're absolutely chef's kiss, beautiful, but they're cold. It was like 50 degrees and rainy and like disgusting. And my body was sort of like wilting in on itself. God bless my friend who I went with, my friend Danielle, who was just like an absolute champ and also like just a great person in general because like I assume, oh, you grew up internationally. I was like, I assume you've been internationally. You grew up internationally, Emily. But like she's been international. She's been to London like 4 times. She's been to Greece. She's like traveled solo. She's like the most cultured person I know. And so when this trip came along, I was like, "Will you take me?" And like that's a big responsibility. Like she could have said no. I'm a first timer. Like that's a lot of response. So it's a really long-winded way of saying I appreciate her. And my trip was very, very fun. And yeah, you did like most of my Instagram stories and posts, which I appreciate. I felt hyped up even from a whole ocean away.
Like trying to escape you. Stop bugging me. Yeah, no, I love how you went to like the Scottish Highlands. I feel like most people like go to Europe, want to go to like Mykonos or like Spain or Capri,
And I mean, like,
get some of that sunshine. And you're
right.
just
And
like
like
the Scottish
someday,
Highlands.
yeah, no, someday, absolutely. But like for a first trip, for like if you've never been abroad before, or like if you're still like new to it, London is such a great like first place to go. And like I'm from Chicago, and everyone told me they're like, yeah, London's like kind of like Chicago, and I didn't really believe them because like everyone always said, oh yeah, it's kind of like this. No, it really is. It's like Chicago, but I felt safer. But I mean, and I don't mean Chicago is unsafe. I mean like I felt safer in London and Scotland than I did in the US. Like it's wild how different things are there. But yeah, Scotland is stunning. Like you see these like stock images and like this drone footage on social media, right? Like you see that and you're like, it can't possibly look that nice. Like, no, but it does. It really, really does look that stunning. Emily, you said that literally okay, guys, there were sheep everywhere in Scotland. Just, I mean, literally everywhere. Like you're driving through and you just see sheep. And so I was telling Emily about that in one of the conversations that we had when I had Wi-Fi, and she sent me like a GIF of a sheep, and so I sent her an actual picture back, and Emily was like, "Oh my god, the grass! It's like as green as it is in that GIF. I didn't think that was real." And I was like, "No, that's legitimately how it is. It's gorgeous. I wish I could post all my photos and not be that like annoying boomer on Facebook, but I'm happy. I don't want to be home, guys. I'm really struggling."
So I know Andy I can't remember if it's in this episode, and we'll reveal who we have as a guest in a moment, which is quite fitting considering she's from not Scotland or
Welsh.
England, but from the UK.
Yeah.
But so I know we've spoken to some guests and they've given you recommendations and things like that. But what were some of the things you did that, like, if I was going, you would now tell me to go check out? Like, any funny stories, any cool must dos?
Listen, I went to a lot of the tourist attractions. Like, I was 100% that. Like, we went to Tower Bridge. I posed like Spider-Man because if you've seen Spider-Man Far From Home, that post is on my Instagram, which you can go find at really_Andy. I was thriving. But honestly, the tourist traps, like, they're tourist stops for a reason. Can I tell you though? I'm gonna be so honest right now. I was underwhelmed by Big Ben. He's not that big. I'm just gonna say it. Like, it's just like, he's impressive. Don't get me wrong. Like, Big Ben is gorgeous, and when you're looking at him, stunning, and you have this like Peter Pan But and when you're right, like looking up at it, you're like, man, this is a great piece of architecture. When you're like a bridge or two over, you're looking at it, and you're like, it's not as tall as I thought. Like, I was thinking Big Ben was like a skyscraper. No, it's not. It's not that big. So I would recommend, though, still seeing all the tourist stops, like go to Tower Bridge, go to Big Ben, go to St. Paul's. I'm not a religious person even a little bit, but St. Paul's Cathedral was like a whole moment for me. I listened to a song from Mary Poppins. Like, it was stunning. We went into like the London Eye. We went like in the big Ferris wheel. It moves very slowly, but we went in it. And when you're at the very top, those views are pristine. I'm trying to think of what else. Like, I'm trying to think of like hidden gems that like I found. And I would just say walk everywhere, and that's hilarious coming from me because I'm lazy as shit, and my friend who I went with is probably like, "I'm sorry, Andy is recommending walking," because I was really mad at her because we walked like 6 to 8 miles every day. There was a point where we were in the London Eye where you're up high and like you get all these gorgeous views. We couldn't even see to the point that like we had walked to that day. My body was broken, but you know what? My calves look great now. So that's my recommendation. Walk everywhere. And when you go to Scotland, do a tour. Do a tour of the Highlands. It's just go see the cows. They're called hairy coos because I don't know why they're called that, but they're very cute. And just like we went to a hotel that was apparently like haunted, and by haunted I mean like there's a ghost of a dog there, and it was I have too many things. My brain is overflowing with things that I want to, like, I could spend a whole hour telling you about these things, but we have actual business to get to. So let's get into that.
Let's get into the business. As we mentioned, today's guest hails from Wales. She is
Hails from
amazing.
Wales. Nicely
Hails from
done.
Wales. Miss Morfydd Clark is the star of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. She plays the wonderful Galadriel.
Mhm.
Andy, we had so much fun. Andy and I had so much fun talking to her.
We
And
did. We did.
I feel like we should get right into it. Give the
Let's
people
do
what
it.
they want.
Yeah,
All
let's
right,
do it.
let's roll it.
Morfydd, hello. Welcome to UnWrapped. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to talk to you. I think that might be coming through already just by me like yelling my enthusiasm at you. But first and foremost, we have to start with, as we always start, how are you? Genuinely, how are you doing today? Because the world is just a mess always. So how are you actually?
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. How am I today? It was my birthday this week, so I'm in a contemplating my existence type of zone. Which always comes
we're
after
in like
the birthday.
we're in like a low-key crisis mode. Okay, cool.
Not necessarily crisis, but thoughtful. Yeah.
Well, happy belated birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy belated.
Thank you. How are you guys?
Good. I feel a lot of I don't know why. It's just I feel very amped up the last like couple of days, and I can't figure out why. Have you ever had that where your energy is suddenly just like,
yes,
I feel very high key.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to rein it in. Hopefully it'll happen during this conversation. Emily, how are you doing?
I am doing great. My cousin from Germany was just visiting, so showing her around New York City. Andy, I know you and Morfydd have to definitely chat at some point because Andy, for the first time, is going to Europe and to London. And I know, that you're there often, Morfydd, so you have to give her some recs.
I will.
Yeah,
absolutely. I will need recommendations.
But Morfydd, you just mentioned your birthday. Again, happy belated birthday. How did you celebrate? I am so curious. What does it celebrating a birthday on the set of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power look like?
Do you know what? I'm sorry to say I wasn't on set.
Oh no!
But I was last year, and I was in the water tank for my last birthday when we were filming. It's not last year, and I kind of just bobbed up to the surface, and everyone sang happy birthday to me while I was just there mobbing. So that was really great. This one was much more low-key. I have lots of friends that have birthdays in March, and so they have lots of parties, and then by the time it comes to mine, I'm like, I just want to be inside with a few people. And it's always quite low-key. Yeah. So I steal their celebrations for mine, basically.
See, this is smart. This is a smart way to go. And then with your last birthday, I'm going to go ahead and classify that as like a pool party. And that's a very fun way to celebrate a birthday. So I think it works.
Nice. Yeah, I will say that in future. It sounds much cooler.
I myself, I have a summer birthday. And so those are low-key like by default because it's the summer and nobody ever really remembers them. But who's bitter? Not me. But
one of my best
I'm
friends.
in December, so I have it's a week, like literally 7 days before Christmas. And so then I have Christmas, Hanukkah, my birthday, all there. Nice. So the presents get a little gypped. You're like, I'm like almost 30 and it's still, I'm not bitter about it as bitter, but it's still, still there.
4th of January is a difficult birthday. She's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Because nobody's up for it anymore.
Yeah, everyone's sick of the parties and
and it's
cold
on holiday. And like, that. No, I feel like we're just deciding that like most birthdays suck unless you're within like a 3-month window. But this is probably my favorite tangent that we've ever been on. But we are, of course, here to discuss.
Sorry, yes.
No, don't apologize. This is 100% my fault getting onto birthdays. But I do want to ask, before we get into anything, I know that you cannot give any kind of spoilers on Rings of Power Season 2. I know that you can't. But let's dance around it a little bit, shall we? Like, what can you tell us about filming Season 2? Like, how has it been? How does it for you? Like, how does it compare to Season 1?
Well, something I'm super excited about with the next season, and this kind of out there, is like we've had incredible people cast, like Rory Kinnear, Kieran Hines. So that's really, really exciting, and it's always nice to have like new people brought in, because I kind of never been in a long running series, and so coming back, it felt like starting term again. I was like, oh, here we all are once again,
back to school.
Yeah. But it's really exciting. Like for Galadriel particularly, she was having sort of kind of mental crisis last time, and therefore quite kind of involved with herself, and now she's kind of thinking about the world and like finding joy in things a bit more despite the darkness. So that's been really fun to play with, but also again doing lots of fun stunts and stuff, which has just been the joy of my life.
I was gonna say you get to do much fun. So freaking much. But I want like, so when we talk about something like this, when we talk about spoilers, I really want to know how hard it is to keep those spoilers to yourself. I mean, like this is obviously this is a fandom that like people want to know, and they want to know everything. So I know you obviously had to keep like when you got the role originally, you had to keep that to yourself.
Yes.
How hard is it to keep that in and to just be like, I know all these things and I can't tell any of you?
Yeah, because I feel like you like leave, you're like, bye, I'm gone to go to New Zealand, bye everyone. And I was like, well, where are you going? Like, I feel like I would maybe make up some obscene like crazy thing, or I would just, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't actually love the power of it. I get really stressed because I do like overshare, and then I end up being like too close book and being like, I don't even want to talk about the fact that I'm in anything. But it's quite funny though, people will come up, like my friends and stuff, be like, well, I've actually been thinking about, because you said this and that means that this is happening and this is happening. I actually know from the law that this is like blah, 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 blah. And sometimes they're super on it and sometimes they're super way off, but it doesn't matter what my expression is. They always think that they're right. And then that's just kind of how I leave it. But it's stressful. I would not be a good spy. This has taught me. No way.
Speaking of stress, how, first of all, are you able to cope with the stress of it all, able to stay grounded amidst the show's popularity? And I also want to talk about some of the exposure therapy you've done, because Andy and I just believe in general, we love therapy. Andy's begun her therapy journey recently. We're all about therapy here, but you've actually done exposure therapy. So I guess that was a lot of questions in one, but how are you able to stay grounded and focus on your mental health? And I also want to know about the exposure therapy you've done specifically for the show.
That was kind of taken slightly out of context, the exposure therapy thing. That basically means that I just had stunties running at me screaming. There was no kind of like, it wasn't a structured thing. because
it wasn't a course.
No,
that you had
because
to
I couldn't stop being like, whenever they come up, like flinching. So that was kind of training that was kind of not necessarily.
Andy and I decided to work therapy, and you were like, "Yes, we love therapy."
But hang on, I'm going to say that
all
counts.
that.
It's still exposing yourself to something that was making you. I vote it counts. But continue.
Yeah. But that was actually like I think that some advice I'd give to kind of anyone going into acting or the creative industries is to kind of like see that you need to talk about kind of things that might be stressing on you and where you are, because you're having to put yourself so much into them. And so kind of I think that talking and stuff is very good for it. With this, I actually think I did have some sort of therapy doing stunts, because I think doing stunts and having the best teachers ever and watching the Great Pottery Throwdown has like healed my issue with authority figures. It's been like really good for me, because I like had teachers who like in school I really didn't like being told what to do, and like also was always not very good necessarily the work and things. And then kind of as someone in their late 20s being taught how to do something you're terrified of by the best teachers ever has been one of the most fulfilling parts of kind of being an actor and being in this job. And they're just the best. Yeah.
I feel like that's like the biggest perk of your job is like you get to go to the Rings of Power and you're like, I'm gonna sword fight today, and then tomorrow I'm gonna be in a big tank. And like combat is something I want to learn. Like I wish I could find combat classes. I'm sure that I probably could, but like
you should.
I have no reason to. Like I'm not acting in a very cool project where I get to be like 1,000-year-old badass elf. I would just be like, Andy wants to learn how to swing a sword around. Like
we're going to see pictures of Andy at her local public pool with pointed ears and just running around.
I hope so.
You act like they don't already exist. You don't know what my childhood was like, Emily. I was very, very... I've always been into genre series.
Oh, have you?
Oh, yes. Very much into... Our producer, Francisco, is backstage asking about LARPing. I have never LARPed. I think I'd be great at it, but I've never been able to like commit to it. But no, I've always been into genres. I love fantasy series in general. And so Lord of the Rings, obviously huge. I know, Morfydd, that you were also into it going into this series. I know that you also have not, or rather going into it, that you didn't talk to Cate Blanchett about taking on a role that she originated. And that totally makes sense to me. And I support that. Curious if you've talked to her since, maybe not about the role, but like, have you encountered her since and then been like, I'm playing you kind of on screen right now, or have you just like avoided her entirely?
No, I kind of feel like she is kind of like a queen. I don't like, I wouldn't dare to approach, but also like, I do feel like everyone in those films are like my heroes, as let alone all the other stuff they've done. Just from those films, they are like certified to me as like special people in my Morfydd universe. But I don't like meeting your heroes is not necessarily what it's cracked up to be. Not because they're not great, but because then you have the social anxiety of you associated with that person. And so it's kind of like, I quite like that she's like some mythical kind of someone I can't believe even exists person that I like see as my kind of guiding light. And then who knows what will happen, but I just think if it happens, I will be like incredibly awkward. And
I believe it. I probably would like disintegrate on the spot.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I would just sort of like wither in on myself, and I'd be like, "You're Cate Blanchett." And I mean, also, but like on the other side of that, Orlando Bloom in the Lord of the Rings series too. That was like peak Orlando. I'm going off. See, this is me being a fan. This is me just like fangirling at you right now, Morfydd.
The hobbits that I just love so much, and I think my friendship group is quite hobbity. I've actually got a few LARPers in my friendship group, and I feel the hobbits would LARP. Yeah,
I love this.
Hang on, does that if you're friends with LARPers, that means you've probably been invited at some point. Have you ever LARPed?
No, I haven't ever LARPed, but it's kind of quite interesting because like they're like not in acting, but know so much obviously about costume and layering and kind of all this stuff. So it's really well. I guess they are actors as well while doing it. So it's really fun to kind of be doing something that loads of my friends are like really into. But yeah, and also since being in this, like the cosplays of the outfits that have been made just absolutely blow my mind. yeah, that's been one of the best things. And I think as well, because I know people who kind of make them, I'm like, that's really, really high standard.
It's really intricate. Yeah, no, I have the utmost respect for cosplayers. I'm actually going to a convention because I'm here in Chicago. I'm going to a convention this weekend. The cosplays are always the best part because these people are so talented. I can see I'm cutting off Emily right now. Please jump in, Emily, because I will just keep going on nerd tangents.
No, I'm so enjoying just being an ant on the wall. I don't. Is that the right saying?
It's a fly on the wall. Fly on the wall, babe. Yeah. Well, okay, so. Yeah, see, and I threw her off now. I threw her off.
We're talking about cosplay and convention. I feel like the Lord of the Rings fan universe is one of the gnarliest groups. Like, do you have any crazy fan stories? Like, do they have your face tattooed on them, or like what? Any marriage proposals? What's going on in that world?
I've like had in general just really nice experiences, and it was quite nice. It's like a lot of women, and that's I kind of feel good about that because I've like also kind of like fanned and like loved watching kind of characters like her and felt kind of good for watching them. So that's something really nice. I went to Oxford recently, which obviously where Tolkien's from, and there's quite a big demographic of people who like Lord of the Rings and fantasy there, and that was quite different, but also just really nice. I do think, in general, and we were really lucky. We went to Comic-Con like before it came out, and there were quite a lot of kind of like really big kind of content creators who do like Lord of the Rings stuff, and some who like don't have necessarily big following, but are kind of so fascinating, know all about it. And that was kind of a really good start for it to kind of be with those people and stuff. So no, it's been really nice. It's when little girls or little like young boys like it, that's when I'm like. Yeah,
melts my heart.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining how that would go because you always see videos of interactions of kids like interacting with their favorite Disney characters, but I feel like fantasy, like especially with Galadriel, such an iconic character. I feel like it's a different thing entirely. But man, that is so exciting that you get to be that because that's the thing is like with this character and with the Rings of Power, you've got a whole generation that came up on the movies and they care very deeply about how the series was going to turn out. But for some people, this series is going to be their first introduction for some of like the younger kids. This series is going to be their first introduction to the world of Tolkien, to the world of Lord of the Rings. So like, what kind of pressure is that for you? Or is it just kind of exciting that you get to be maybe that entry point for people?
It's getting more exciting. The lead up to the premiere was probably like the most frightening time of my life because it was just the unknown, and also that we'd filmed it so far away, so it almost kind of felt like away from people who kind of knew us and stuff. So because of like just wanting to keep like secret stuff secret, but also just being far away, it felt so separate to my life in a way that other things haven't. And the build up to it actually coming out like a year and a half after we filmed it, that was, I think the whole cast was in a kind of state of like constant kind of fight or flight about it. And I think now that we're coming to the second series, we know what we've made, we know our characters, we know each other. And so, it's kind of being able to enjoy it more. But the thing is also like most actors just anyway are quite like neurotic. So we will find something to kind of be neurotic about, whatever the situation. I think I'm just as nervous like going up to do like a speech in a church hall than I am on set, to be honest. It's all high anxiety. Really? Yeah, I think so.
That's so intense. Yeah. I mean, like, that's great that you are able to do it then. So, I mean, well done. Thank you for...
I couldn't do what you guys do at all.
I don't believe that.
Not much.
What? Come again?
No, like, I find it much the idea of like facilitating and like being yourself more, because I'm not often myself.
Are you not being yourself? Yeah. See, now I feel like
I am now. It's very scary. No, but it's a slightly different thing where you are kind of protected.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, this is something that I'm going to be neurotic about now because my fear is always that I scare people with it. So listen, we are in this together, Morfydd.
We're hoping we're not scaring her. We're very high energy, craziness. Like classic Americans over here being obnoxious.
That's going to be the headline that people pull from this conversation. Be like, God, these two girls from the Wrap really terrified Morfydd Clark, and it's not going to be great for us. I mean, speaking more serious though, without terrifying you. I want to go back because you mentioned that you have these characters that you looked up to, right? Like you've got little girls coming up to you, but you've got characters that you looked up to and look up to still. Galadriel, obviously just a fucking badass. Excuse my language, but she's just a fucking badass. There's no other way to describe her. Who's that character for you? I mean, who are the characters that you look to, like when you're trying to emulate this badassness of her, when you're trying to like find her in you? What characters do you sort of draw from?
Buffy was one that was like big for me, and I think also it was kind of like it was one that like I loved as a child, and then kind of when I rewatched it as I was older, I'd like enjoy it more and more and more because you get more. And then when I rewatched as an actor, I just loved Sarah Michelle Gellar even more because like I now appreciate what. And so there's a show called Happy Valley. Have you heard about that? It's like a British show that follows like a policewoman.
Happy Bunny?
And she's Happy Valley.
Happy Valley. I was like, Happy Bunny was a thing when I was a kid. Happy Valley. Heard of it.
I'm adding that to my list.
Keep going.
I've been really into British TV shows lately.
Oh, it's so good.
Like The In-Betweeners, Misfits.
That's a very particular,
Drifters.
very truthful part of British culture there that you've been.
So, okay, I'm going to add Happy Valley to my next
It's not
list.
as fun as those ones. It's quite dark. But she's basically like
I love the darkness too.
Galadriel of the Northern England Police Department.
Oh,
so, she's great. But yeah, so many, and I just think also in my life, I think I've kind of like always found my mum really cool and my mum's friends really cool. Like this idea of like I've always like looked up to women quite a lot, and like to be playing a character that's kind of looked up to is really cool.
Kind of looked up to, very looked up to. We're not going to minimize Galadriel in this house.
She's a big deal. Sorry,
Yeah, she is a big deal. I'm coming in so aggressive on this conversation, guys. I'm so sorry. This is so much, even for me. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm exhausting myself. Emily, please save me.
Well, I know we're almost out of time, and this kind of segues into our last question. This podcast is all about empowering women, especially women in the industry. What advice, you mentioned some advice earlier, but what advice do you have for women who are looking to break into Hollywood?
I think that the thing that has kept me kind of sane and being able to do this is the relationships I've made with other women in the industry and just women in my life. Like I feel really lucky that I'm kind of surrounded now by people who I know that the affection's shared and there's loyalty and also that we kind of inspire each other. And I think that's something I feel really lucky to have come into this industry kind of post a lot of conversations about this, because I think there was in the past kind of like an idea that you were competition, and that made us so much more vulnerable that we weren't kind of united. So I think there's a song by Marina and the Diamonds called Fear and Loathing.
Yes.
I don't know if you know it.
You have good taste.
I think that sometimes when you're going into these industries where you feel like there's not enough space for everyone, fear and loathing can kind of creep up on you. And there's a line that's like, not everyone's out to screw you over. Maybe they just want to get to know you. And I think it's like knowing that like most relationships and people you meet in this will be positive and cherish them.
I love that.
Amen.
That's so positive. I really do. Oh, I appreciate that so much. And we always love ending our conversations on a positive note. And Morfydd, you just killed it. That is our time with you. But thank you so much for talking with us today, for being so generous with your time and being generous with your sanity, embracing this energy that we brought, because I do know it was a lot, but we so appreciate you. We are such fans. We cannot wait to see season 2. I wish that we could know more, but you gotta play those spoilers close to the vest. But we appreciate you, Morfydd, so thank you.
Cool. Oh, thank you so much.
I'm still stuck on Hails from Wales. I still think that was really, really clever of you, Emily. Morfydd Clark hails from Wales. And I just feel like we need to use that more somehow. I don't know how. What's so funny, though, is like New Zealand, I guess, is where like the Lord of the Rings movies were filmed. And that's like the big location. But when I was on vacation, I'm going to be that bitch now that's like, I went to Europe. So let me make everything about my trip to Europe.
Barcelona.
But yeah, I'm going to be at Barcelona. Listen, I didn't come back with an accent, though. I'm not that person.
I was kind of thinking you might, but
If
Not
I
yet.
could, I would, but I can't, so I shan't. But no, my friend Danielle that I went with, she loves Lord. Like I'm a fan, you're a fan, but like she's a fan, and she was tearing up a little bit because there's some of the areas that look like it's straight out of Lord of the Rings, and there was a shop we went to that had like movie props, and it had like Lord of the Rings, like you could get a ring on a necklace, and which was in Scotland, which was super super weird to me because New Zealand is the place. I don't know, geography makes no sense to me, but Lord of the Rings was very much present. So I was thinking about Morfydd while I was on my trip, and I was like, I should tell her about this at some point. I don't know when I'll get to chat to her again, but like I'll let her know at some point that it was great. She knew I was
We'll
going.
get her back. We'll get her back. We had some fun. I think she had some fun too.
I think so. I think we stressed her out with the spoilers. Because listen, I feel for her. I get it, like the power of spoilers. I agree with her. Like I think that would be so stressful. So I applaud her for hanging on to them, and I think we maybe stressed her out a little bit, but that's okay. That's our jobs. We have to ask about spoilers at least a little bit.
It is our job to stress people out and ask them the questions that they may not want to answer. But alas, we do it for the greater good of the people. But thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Unwrapped. We have another amazing episode coming for you next week. So if you miss us in the meantime, be sure to check us out on Instagram at WrapWomen, on Twitter at TheWrapWomen, and sign up for our WrapWomen newsletter at WrapWomen.com. You can also follow us on our own personal social medias to go and check out Andy's awesome European content and all of her post-trip additional content uploads.
I have to do a photo dump still. I really have to do like a nice couple carousels that's just like, look at all the pretty things I saw.
Yes, that needs to happen. But again, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Emily Vogel, please. And Andy, I will throw it to you for yours.
Yeah, on TikTok, you can find me just at really Andy. That is Andy with an I. And then on Instagram, it's really_Andy, because Andy of Instagram, still hope you're living your best life, who took the handle that I wanted.
The weekly shout out to
weekly shout out, weekly bitterness, same thing.
But thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye,
guys.